Hey there, I'm Josh, and today I'm going to be just joshing around, refinishing my kitchen table and chairs. These are the finishing products that I use for this project, and it took me about 9 hours to complete. We've had this set of table and chairs for about 10 years now, and for 2 of those years, they stayed pretty nice. That is until my children discovered that this tabletop was basically a blank canvas, yearning to be made beautiful with their artwork. Except instead of just using paintbrushes and markers, they used some spoons and forks to make sure that their artwork was going to leave a lasting impression. And to that, I say,
how about new?
You see, for Christmas last year, I asked my wife, what would you like? Her single reply was,
maybe you could refinish the table and chairs, and that's the only thing I want for Christmas.
So luckily I got them done just in time for Christmas, in July. Anywho, in order to thoroughly strip these pieces down for refinishing, I am disassembling everything. You already saw me tear down the table, and now I'm taking apart a chair. And about the chairs, I'm only going to show you each step of the process for one chair. I'm not going to repeat the same thing 3 more times afterwards, because that's just a waste of time. And oh, look at how beautiful this piece of abstract artwork is. You know, on second thought, maybe I should preserve this for sentimental reasons. No. As you can see, to strip off the finish, I'm using my orbital sander here. I did actually try some chemical stripping in a couple spots on the bottom of this thing, as was recommended in a couple of Google searches. But I didn't have any luck with that. Maybe I would have had some better luck with some different chemicals, but if pickle juice and moonshine don't do the trick, then I don't know what would. Anyway, I had actually decided to use this orbital sander because there were quite a few little dings and scratches and dents all over the wood. Somewhat surprising actually, because this set is made of rubber wood, which is a durable hardwood and supposedly resistant to scratches and dents. Also not that surprising because my children are a destructive force of nature. Well, not really my daughter as much. My boys, on the other hand, oh my. There's a reason I sometimes call them the Sons of Thunder. Though I gotta say, I'm not really worried too much if the finish gets ruined on this set again, because my kids already know that if that happens, then they're going to use their allowance money to buy us a new one. And trust me, I'm not joking, kids. Anyway, back to sanding. I know I've mentioned it in past videos, but I really like this sander. This project was actually specifically why I bought this sander, but luckily I've been able to test it out quite a bit on some other projects beforehand. And ever since I bought it, my opinion has only improved. If you're ever in need of an orbital sander, I very highly recommend this one. This part was hands down by far the worst part of this project. Since the backs of these chairs were all glued together, stripping away all of that old finish was a huge pain in the butt. Or more specifically, a huge pain in the fingers, because my fingers were killing me after this. As you can see, I removed as much finish as I could with the sander here. But for all those hard to reach in-between areas, I had to get a little more creative. So I switched over to the little drum sander attachment on my rotary tool. This actually worked pretty well, and I was able to remove the majority of the finish that was left over from where I was unable to get it with the orbital sander. But like I mentioned before, stripping down these seat backs was definitely the most time-consuming part of this entire project. And even after I was done using this rotary tool, I had to go back into all the little creases and connection points with a little piece of sandpaper and get whatever was remaining as best I could. If I ever had to do this type of stripping on furniture again, I'd probably look into some sort of alternative method. Maybe look more seriously into the chemical route, or sandblasting, or whatever. But for this, I got the job done, and thankfully it was time to move on to the next step, which was reassembling everything. Hey, here's a little fun fact for you. Back when my wife and I decided to purchase this furniture, we bought it from a little wood shop a couple miles away from our house. The fellow who owns the shop is an insanely talented woodworker, and has a good reputation for selling high-quality Amish-style furniture and whatnot. Now, if you don't know, when the term Amish style is used to describe furniture, it's indicative of the pieces being constructed using solid wood and traditional methods to ensure that it has durable, heirloom quality construction. Now, due to the combination of facts that we live relatively close to a decent-sized Amish community, and also that we first saw this set of table and chairs in the showroom of our local woodworker, I just kind of assumed that this set was either made by him or at least made locally. So I was a bit surprised when I first saw this on the bottom. And that's not to say anything negative about it. It was just funny to me because, with the weird way that my brain works, my first thought was literally, wait a minute, I didn't know that there were Amish people in Vietnam. What a coinky-dink. Now granted, there may be a small possibility that there is an Amish community in Vietnam, but the more likely conclusion here is that I'm kinda dumb sometimes. Anyway, whether this furniture truly has the traditional Amish-style construction or not, it is very well made, and it's done a great job of serving our purposes really well. And it's stood up to quite a bit of trauma over the past 10 years. Now that the reassembly is complete, it's time to move on to finishing. The first step to this process is to wipe down each piece very thoroughly using pre-stain conditioner. This is the same stuff that I've used on the past couple woodworking projects that I've done, and honestly, I wouldn't ever not use it going forward. After allowing that to dry for the directed time, I then moved on to staining. This is once again the same stain that I used on the past couple projects as well. One thing that I was already noticing was that I liked this look much better than the original. The original finish was more opaque, and it really hid the grain of the wood. Since this new stuff is basically completely clear, it really helps that grain to pop. For this staining portion of the process, I only applied one coat, and then I allowed it to dry for just a couple minutes and wiped off the excess. I was trying to match the color to that of our kitchen cabinets, along with both the shelves and the coffee table that I made previously. For the polyurethane, I applied 3 coats over each piece. The first coat was thinned down to a 50-50 mixture using mineral spirits, while the second coat was thickened up a bit, and finally the third coat being full strength. Also, between coats, I very lightly sanded away any imperfections or bubbles using some very fine steel wool, as well as thoroughly cleaning away any dust or residue that was left over. I actually saw one post online suggesting that you use very fine steel wool to apply your final coat of polyurethane. I was not brave enough to try that. I might try it with something eventually just to see how it works, but I would be afraid that a lot of those little steel fibers would break off and just be there on the surface of the finish. I also saw another post stating that you should never wipe on your final coat of polyurethane, that you should always use a fine bristle brush or a foam brush. Well, believe it or not, for the past couple projects, I've just wiped on everything. Now, by no means am I an expert, but it's worked really well for me so far. And my advice would be, if you're unsure about something, then try it out. You just may not want to try it on a very prominent piece the first time. But I know that for me, over the past couple projects, I have learned a lot about finishing furniture. And there is definitely a lot that I have yet to learn. Now, before I finish up and get to the final reveal, let me just say that if you have any suggestions or criticisms that might help me improve, please leave them in the comments below. Now let's take a look at everything all together. Now, since this was supposed to be a Christmas gift for my wife for last year, the most important thing is that she absolutely loves how it looks. And for me, I just love how much better the grain looks as compared to what it was originally. You know, I actually have a pretty good feeling that this set of table and chairs is going to last us another 10 years. And who knows, maybe another 10 after that. The bottom line is that the Vietnamese Amish community really knows how to make good furniture. And overall, we couldn't be happier with ours. With this project, I figured out one thing for sure. I'm not really a big fan of refinishing furniture. Having said that, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out, and my wife really loves it. Well, that about does it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to like and subscribe and maybe share it with somebody. And also, if you have time, check out some of my other stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.